The earth is heavy and close. Darkness presses against her eyes, a suffocating kind of silence that tastes like dust. Eva tries to move, but her hands hit rough wood inches from her face. Panic rushes in before breath does. Something warm brushes her arm. A weak sound follows, a broken whisper. "Mom?" It's Mia, her daughter's voice small and fading. The air smells like soil and wood and fear. Her fingers scrape the boards above, splinters biting her skin. She pushes again, but the box does not move. The weight above them feels endless, pressing down from all sides. Her pulse hammers in her throat, loud enough to drown thought. She gropes for Mia's hand and feels the faintest squeeze back. "Stay with me," she whispers. "Just breathe." Her voice cracks on the last word. A memory flickers through the dark. Sunlight on Daniel's face that morning, his calm smile as he loaded their camping gear into the truck. He had said they needed space, a weekend away to fix things. The drive had been quiet, except for the sound of gravel under tires and birds that seemed too far from home. He'd held her hand as they walked to the clearing. Then there had been the smell of gasoline, a strange numbness in her arm, his eyes, gentle, almost sorry, before everything tilted and went black. Now she lies in the echo of that moment, trapped between heartbeat and burial. Her nails claw at the wood until they bleed. She finds a gap near the corner, thin enough for a thread of air. Her lungs seize on it greedily. "Mia," she says. "We're not done yet." The girl stirs beside her, a sob turning into a cough. Dirt falls through the cracks in soft showers. Each grain feels like time running out. Eva presses her shoulder against the lid, gritting her teeth. The boards creak but hold. She thinks of Daniel's hands, the way they steadied her when they danced once, years ago. Those same hands had sealed this box. The betrayal burns hotter than the panic. "He buried us alive," she breathes, tasting the truth for the first time. The words steady her more than air. With a desperate surge, she pushes again, not for escape but for proof that she still can. Somewhere above, the earth shifts. A faint beam of light leaks through a crack, thin as hope, but enough to tell her they are not gone yet. The sound of her own heartbeat fills the wooden walls, wild and uneven. Eva's throat is raw from the dirt, her mind spinning back to the morning that led them here. Daniel had said it softly, like a promise. "Let's go away for the weekend, just us three. We need time to breathe." He'd kissed her forehead, gentle as always, but there had been something off in his calm, something rehearsed. He packed too carefully. She'd noticed the extra rope coiled in the back of the truck, the missing signal on her phone as soon as they turned off the main road, the way he smiled when she mentioned it. "It's good," he said. "No distractions this time." He'd even brought her favorite blanket, folded perfectly. She had wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that the man who once sang to their daughter at bedtime could still love them enough to fix what was broken. Now, the lie presses down with every pound of dirt above her. Her hand brushes against something cold, a thin, rusted pipe running along one side of the box. Hope flickers through the panic. She grips it, shaking, and pushes upward with all the strength left in her arms. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, a faint hiss. Air. The sound is so small, so fragile, but it feels like a miracle. Mia stirs beside her, a whimper caught in her throat. Eva turns her face toward her daughter's trembling silhouette. "Listen to me," she whispers. "If you hear footsteps above us, don't move. Don't make a sound. Pretend we're dead until he's gone." The words come from somewhere deeper than fear, an instinct carved by betrayal. They wait. The air is thin and sharp, like breathing through needles. Then Eva feels something loosen. The weight above shifts just slightly. She pushes harder, nails tearing, muscles screaming. A crack runs along the board, thin light seeping through. Dirt pours in, choking them, but she doesn't stop. With a cry that's more animal than human, she shoves her way up, clawing at the collapsing soil. The world opens in a rush of light and air and pain. Eva drags herself out first, pulling Mia close behind her. They tumble onto the cold ground, gasping, covered in soil. The sky burns gold above them, too bright, too cruel. For a moment, the only sound is their breathing, the proof that they are still alive. And beneath that, the quiet knowledge that survival is only the beginning. They walked without knowing where they were going, every step a war between instinct and exhaustion. The forest stretched endlessly, trees watching in silence. Mia leaned against her, trembling, her face pale beneath streaks of mud. Ava's legs shook beneath her, but she kept moving. One hand clutched over her daughter's shoulder, as if that alone could keep her alive. When the ranger station finally appeared, a squat building with a radio antenna and faded green paint, it didn't feel real. Ava stumbled through the door, dragging Mia behind her. The man inside, broad-shouldered with a sunburned neck, froze when he saw them. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Two women covered in dirt and blood had clawed their way out of the woods like ghosts. "Help," Eva rasped, before her knees gave out. Everything after that blurred into movement and noise, hands lifting her, voices shouting, the high-pitched whine of a radio call. "Found them," someone said. "Possible entrapment, possible assault." She heard Mia crying somewhere nearby, and that sound alone kept her conscious as they laid her on a stretcher. In the ambulance, white light flickered against metal walls. The medic pressed an oxygen mask to her face, telling her to breathe. Eva's fingers trembled as she gripped the edge of the blanket they'd thrown over her. Something heavy sat in the fabric near her side pocket. She reached for it, confused. Her hand closed around cold metal, Daniel's jacket. The one she'd grabbed in panic from the dirt as they'd crawled out. A lighter fell onto her lap. Silver, scratched, engraved with letters so faint they almost disappeared in the flashing light. MB Eva stared at it, mind spinning. She had seen those initials before. Marcus Bellard. Daniel had mentioned him months ago. A business partner, an investor who could clear the debts and help them start fresh. The name had sounded harmless then, even promising. Daniel had said, "He's the kind of man who makes problems go away." Now, the phrase curdled in her memory. The medic noticed her staring at the lighter. "You should rest, ma'am," he said gently. "We're almost there." But Eva couldn't hear him anymore. She traced the engraved letters with her thumb, and an image flashed before her eyes. Daniel shaking hands with Bellard in their driveway, both laughing, a briefcase between them. The smell of oil and new tires. Bellard had looked like a man who didn't hear the word no. Her heartbeat slowed into a cold, steady rhythm. This hadn't been an accident. Not a sudden break of rage or madness. It was neat, prepared, calculated. The burial box, the location without signal, the timing of their trip. It all had purpose. As the ambulance roared toward the hospital, Eva looked at her reflection in the metal panel above her. Her face was gray and hollow, but her eyes were sharp now, alive in a new way. Daniel hadn't just tried to kill them. He'd followed someone's orders. And if Marcus Bellard's name was carved into this lighter, then the ground that buried them was paid for. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and rain-soaked clothes. Machines beeped softly, a cruel reminder that they were alive when they shouldn't be. Eva lay under thin sheets, her body aching, her mind trying to separate dream from memory. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw dirt pressing down, the hollow thud of Daniel's shovel. When the door opened, she thought for a second it was another nurse. Then she heard his voice. "Eva, oh my God." Daniel stood frozen in the doorway, his face pale, his hair disheveled. His voice trembled just enough to sound human. "They said there was a landslide. I thought you were gone." The words slid through the air like oil. He crossed to her side too quickly, taking her hand before she could move it away. His thumb brushed her knuckles, tender, practiced, the same hand that had covered her face with earth. I tried to reach you," he said. "When the signal died, I panicked. I called search and rescue." His story was ready, smooth. She could hear the shape of lies hiding under his breath. But when she looked into his eyes, she found a flicker of something she still recognized. Fear, not guilt. And that was somehow worse. The police came later, notebooks in hand, asking gentle questions. "Can you tell us what happened out there, Mrs. Reeves?" She opened her mouth to speak, to say his name, but Daniel's hand tightened on hers under the blanket. She looked at him, then at Mia curled in the next bed, eyes red, lips trembling. "It was an accident," Eva said finally. "The ground just gave way." Mia turned sharply. "Mom..." "Enough," Eva whispered. "We'll handle this our way." fear and love braided together inside her chest, choking each other. And she realized silence could feel a lot like survival. The house felt different now, too clean, too quiet, as if it had already forgotten them. Eva stood in the doorway, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound. Daniel had insisted she rest, said he'd handle the paperwork and meet with the insurance adjuster about the accident. He'd kissed her forehead before leaving, gentle as ever, his touch colder than the metal door handle that clicked behind him. She moved through the rooms like a stranger, noticing the small wrongness in everything. His jacket was gone. The drawer where he kept the camping receipts had been emptied. The desk in his study, always locked, was left slightly ajar. Something inside her whispered not to look, but her hands moved anyway. She opened the drawer. Stacks of neatly arranged papers waited, all with her name printed cleanly at the top. Her eyes caught the heading first: Life Insurance Policy, Supplemental Accidental Death Coverage. Her heartbeat slowed, every sound in the house stretching thin around her. Insured, Eva Reeves, beneficiary, Daniel Reeves, payout, 200,000 date of issue. 3 weeks before the trip, the paper trembled between her fingers. Beneath it lay a printed email thread, Daniel corresponding with someone labeled MB Dev Group. Her stomach turned. The same initials from the lighter, the same letters that had followed her out of the dirt. The messages were vague but sharp-edged. Policy confirmed. Documentation enclosed. Final payment on completion. Completion. The word pulsed like a wound. Eva sank into the desk chair, staring at her name stamped across every line. All those signatures, all that ink, and not one moment of consent. She turned the page. A transaction log listed numbered accounts, each followed by initials: MB, DR, MR. The pattern was clear now. The lighter wasn't just a coincidence. It was a brand, a mark of business done quietly. Her throat tightened. She had not been a wife that weekend. She had been a liability written off, a body with market value. The air in the study felt thin. The clock on the wall ticked too loud, steady as a shovel hitting earth. She folded the papers back into the drawer, locking it again. Not to hide them, but to keep herself from tearing them apart. Her pulse steadied with a new kind of clarity. Whatever Daniel had buried, it wasn't just her and Mia. It was the truth. And she was going to dig it up. The police station was smaller than Eva expected. One story of faded paint and buzzing lights that made the air feel tired. She sat in the waiting area clutching a manila envelope so tightly her knuckles ached. Inside were copies of the insurance policy, the transaction log, and a photo of the lighter. Evidence, or maybe just fragments of her own disbelief. Detective Maren Hale appeared after a few minutes, tall and calm, with the kind of gaze that saw too much. "Mrs. Reeves?" she asked. Her tone wasn't unkind, just measured. Eva followed her into a narrow office filled with stacks of old case files and the smell of stale coffee. Hale sat behind her desk, steepling her fingers. "You said this was about an attempted murder?" Eva's voice trembled at first, but found its footing. She told her everything, about the camping trip, the box, waking underground, Daniel's visit at the hospital, and finally the papers she'd found in his desk. Hale didn't interrupt, just nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. When Eva placed the lighter on the desk, the engraved initials caught the fluorescent light. Hale leaned forward, studying it. "MB," she murmured. "That name's come up before." Eva frowned. "You know him?" Hale exhaled. "Marcus Bellard, real estate developer, owns half the new construction in this county. Generous donor, very public reputation. But behind closed doors," she trailed off, flipping through a file drawer until she pulled out a manila folder labeled Bellard, M, Field Notes. "There's been talk," she continued. "Shell companies, offshore transfers, fake land deals, and accidents. Men falling from scaffolds, equipment malfunctions, site inspectors vanishing. Always near one of his projects." The room felt colder. "So you believe me?" Eva said quietly. "I believe something's happening," Hale replied. "But if you're saying your husband tried to kill you, we'll need proof that ties Bellard to it." "Hard proof," Eva met her gaze. Then I'll find it. Hale hesitated, then said softly, "If Bellard's involved, he doesn't leave loose ends. Be careful, Mrs. Reeves. The people around him, they don't bury mistakes, they erase them." For the first time since the dirt closed over her, Eva felt something other than fear. It wasn't peace, it was purpose. The drive back to the woods felt endless, every bend in the road echoing with ghosts. Hale's car rattled along the narrow dirt path, tires crunching over loose stones. The trees closed in around them, the same ones that had watched silently as Eva and Mia clawed their way out of the ground. When they reached the clearing, Hale cut the engine. The air was unnervingly still. No birds, no wind, just the hum of insects and the faint smell of damp earth. Eva hesitated before stepping out. Her knees nearly buckled when her shoes sank into the soil. It looked peaceful now, but her body remembered the weight of it. "Take your time," Hale said quietly, scanning the area with a trained eye. Eva forced herself to move closer. The ground was uneven, scarred where the wooden box had been pulled out. Her gaze followed a faint pattern leading away. Tire tracks, half washed by rain but still visible. A little farther, two distinct sets of boot prints overlapped. One deep and heavy, the other lighter, hurried. "Those prints weren't from the rescue team," Hale murmured, crouching to take photos. "And that," she pointed to the faint curve of tread in the dirt. "SUV tires, large, new." Eva's stomach twisted. "Bellard?" Hale straightened. "We ran the property records. Bellard Holdings owns the land just beyond this ridge, and one of their vehicles, black SUV, was logged by a traffic cam on the highway 2 hours before your call to 911. Eva stared at the ground, the reality sinking deeper than the footprints. It hadn't been random. They'd been driven here, buried here on Bellard's land. Hale turned to her, serious. "You need protection. I can put in a request for a temporary watch, maybe relocation if—" "No," Eva cut in. Her voice came out harder than she expected. "No more running. No more pretending," Hale's brow furrowed. "You don't understand who you're dealing with. These people don't make threats. They make examples." "I understand," Eva said, "and that's exactly why I have to finish this." That night, the house felt wrong before Daniel even spoke. He was waiting in the kitchen when she came home, sleeves rolled up, a dish towel in his hands as if he'd been drying plates. His face was calm, his smile faintly sympathetic, practiced. "You're scaring Mia," he said softly. "She's confused. She thinks you're angry at me. Maybe you should stop talking to strangers and focus on your family." Eva set her bag down, every nerve tightening. "Strangers?" she asked. "You mean the detective?" He shrugged. "You're tired. You've been through a lot. Let's not make this worse." His voice was honey over glass, sweet, but every word could cut. When he left the room, her phone buzzed. One new message, no name. Just 5 words, family first. "Stay buried." The screen's glow painted her face in pale light. Outside, a car engine started, low, distant, familiar. She moved to the window and saw it disappearing down the street. A black SUV. Her reflection stared back at her in the glass, eyes hollow, but awake. They were still watching, and this time, she wasn't the one buried. Mia came home late, breathless and pale, her backpack half open and one shoe untied. She slammed the door behind her and pressed her back against it, as if something might still be chasing her. Eva looked up from the kitchen table, where she'd been staring at her cold coffee for an hour. "What happened?" she asked, already on her feet. Mia swallowed hard. "There was a woman. She was waiting across the street from school. Red scarf, black car. She followed me halfway home. I saw her face in the reflection of the bus window." Eva's stomach knotted. "Are you sure?" "She wasn't hiding," Mia said, voice shaking. "She wanted me to see her." That evening, Eva checked the window every few minutes. Nothing. But when she stepped outside to take the trash to the curb, a car engine purred nearby. The passenger window rolled down just enough to show a flash of crimson fabric, a red scarf. "Mrs. Reeves," a woman's voice called. "We should talk." Eva froze. The woman stepped out, heels clicking softly against the pavement. She was beautiful in a way that didn't look safe. Sharp eyes, sleek hair, lipstick the color of bruised fruit. "My name's Alina," she said. "I work with Marcus Ballard." Eva's throat went dry. "Work with him or clean up after him?" A faint smile. "Both, sometimes." Alina stopped a few feet away. "He doesn't like mess. And you, Mrs. Reeves, you've started making one. I'm here to tell you to stop before you vanish for real." He calls it resetting the board. Eva forced herself to meet her gaze. "You mean killing me?" "I mean," Alina said, stepping closer, "you'll be here one day and gone the next. No evidence, no noise, like you never crawled out of that dirt." Eva's hand, hidden in her coat pocket, pressed the record button on her phone. "You sound afraid of him too," she whispered. Alina's eyes flickered, something almost human behind the polish. "I'm not the one who should be." She turned back toward the car. "Walk away while you still have a face they'll recognize." The SUV rolled off into the dark, its taillights washing red over Eva's shaking hands. The SUV rolled off into the dark, its taillights washing red over Eva's shaking hands. Later that night, the smell of smoke pulled her from her thoughts. She found Daniel in the living room, feeding papers into the fireplace. His face glowed orange in the light. "What are you doing?" she asked, trying to sound calm. "Clearing clutter," he said simply. "Old contracts." He left the room, and she moved closer to the fire. Among the curling edges of ash, a half-burnt document caught her eye. She grabbed the poker and pulled it out before the flames could finish their work. Project Timberline. Underneath, smaller text. Casualty contingency clause. Pre-approved. Her name wasn't on it, but Bellard's was. Next to Daniel's signature, Eva stared at the paper, her heartbeat pounding in her ears. This wasn't about her family anymore. It was business, cold, profitable, and calculated. The fire crackled softly behind her, eating the rest of the truth one page at a time. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers and champagne, laughter bouncing off marble walls. Everyone who mattered in the city was there. Politicians, developers, reporters, all gathered under banners that read, "Bellard Foundation Building Futures." The irony wasn't lost on Eva. She stood just inside the doorway, heart pounding beneath the borrowed black dress that didn't quite fit. She had slipped past security with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose. Across the room, on a stage framed with gold drapery, Marcus Bellard held the microphone, his practiced smile shining under the lights. Beside him stood Daniel, freshly shaved, polished, a husband playing the part. "Because we believe in community, in rebuilding after hardship," Bellard said smoothly. "Tonight, we celebrate resilience." Eva almost laughed. Resilience. That's what they called being buried alive and digging yourself out. She reached into her clutch, feeling the cool plastic edge of the flash drive pressing against her palm. Inside it lived every truth she had managed to collect. The recording of Alina's warning, the photographs of the tire tracks, and the grainy footage Hale had recovered from a hidden trail camera near the burial site. She waited for Bellard to step away from the podium, then moved. Each step across the marble floor felt like walking through water. Her heels clicked softly, steady, deliberate. She approached the tech table near the back, where the events slideshow played glossy images of smiling workers and shining buildings. "Excuse me," she whispered to the sound operator, voice calm. "Marcus asked me to update the presentation." She didn't wait for permission. Her hands plugged in the drive before the man could respond. The screen flickered once, twice. Then the music died. At first it was just static. Then a still image appeared, a forest clearing, familiar and too quiet. The crowd murmured, confused. A shaky camera view showed a black SUV parked beneath the ridge. Another frame. 2 men dragging something long and wooden through the dirt. The footage jumped, blurred, then cleared just enough to show Daniel's face in profile. A gasp rippled through the room, and then his voice filled the speakers, rough and unmistakable. "It'll look natural." The screen went black. For a full heartbeat, no one moved. The only sound was the clink of a dropped glass somewhere near the buffet table. Then the whispers began, first low, then louder, growing like a wave. Is that Daniel Reeves? Was that Bellard's car? Someone call security. Eva stood still, her breath shallow, watching it unfold. Reporters were already pulling out phones, recording, streaming. On stage, Bellard's expression froze mid-smile. His mask didn't slip, it shattered. He handed the microphone to an aide and began edging toward the side exit, murmuring to someone in a dark suit. Daniel remained where he was, color draining from his face. For the first time, his charm deserted him. He met Eva's eyes across the crowd. No love, no hate, just raw disbelief that she'd actually done it. The cameras turned toward him, lights flaring. The room smelled of panic now, perfume and sweat and truth colliding under the chandelier glow. Eva didn't move. She didn't need to. The story was telling itself. The sound of breaking glass tore through the quiet like a gunshot. Eva jerked upright from the couch, heart hammering, just as Mia screamed from upstairs. Shards glittered across the living room floor. A jagged hole punched through the window. Cold night air poured in, carrying a slip of paper tied around a brick. Eva's hands trembled as she unwrapped it. 3 words, written in thick black marker, smeared by dust. You unearthed too much. Her knees gave out, and she sank onto the rug, the words bleeding into her vision. The house, the one place that had once been safe, felt suddenly hollow, a shell waiting to collapse. By the time Detective Hale arrived, blue lights painted the walls in pulses of red and white. She moved quickly, scanning the damage, her expression grim. "Pack your things," she said. "You and your daughter are coming with me." "But Daniel's gone," Hale interrupted. "His car was found outside Bellard's office. The building's empty. We think he's running." Eva nodded numbly, her thoughts spinning. Hale guided them out into the night, toward the unmarked car waiting at the curb. Mia clutched her backpack like a lifeline, eyes wide but steady. By morning, the story broke everywhere, headlines flashing across every screen. Her name threaded through them like a curse. Real estate mogul tied to attempted murder plot. Bellard empire under investigation. Local family survives. Burial alive. Evidence leads to fraud ring. Reporters camped outside the safe house gates within hours, their voices muffled through the thin walls. Eva sat by the small window, staring at her reflection in the glass. "He's really gone," she whispered. "I should have left him years ago. I should have seen it." Mia looked up from the couch, wrapped in a blanket 2 sizes too big. "Mom," she said softly, "you did see it. You dug us out, literally." The words hit harder than comfort. They were truth. Eva looked down at her dirt-scarred hands, remembering how they'd clawed through soil and fear, through lies and silence. Outside, dawn began to edge over the horizon, pale light creeping across the sky. She had been buried once, but now she was the one uncovering the world. The forest was quiet again. Too quiet. The kind of silence that hummed beneath the skin. Eva parked at the edge of the service road just as the sun slipped behind the trees, throwing long shadows across the ground where she and Mia had once clawed their way back to life. The air smelled of damp pine and memory. She stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The yellow evidence flags were gone now, the soil turned over by rain and time, but she could still see it, the outline of the box, the mark of the SUV tires, the faint indentation where she'd first gasped air. She crouched and pressed her palm against the dirt. "Closure," she whispered. "Just closure." The crack of a branch snapped the quiet in two. She turned. Daniel staggered from between the trees, clothes torn, one hand pressed against his side. Blood seeped through his fingers. His face was pale and frantic, eyes wide with something between fear and madness. "Eva," he rasped, "you have to listen. It wasn't supposed to be you." "Not like that." Her breath caught. "You buried me, Daniel." He shook his head, stumbling closer. "They said it would just look like an accident. Bellard made me sign the clause. Timberline was collapsing. We were drowning in debt. They promised to erase it all. I thought I could keep you safe." "Safe?" she whispered. "You still put the dirt on me." He flinched, as if the words had struck him harder than any bullet. "I came to warn you," he said, voice breaking. "They're not done." Hale's sting, it went wrong. They shot at us. Billard's people. They'll come for you next. Sirens wailed in the distance, faint but closing fast. Daniel looked toward the sound, panic flashing in his eyes. Then he reached inside his jacket and pulled out a small black gun. "Don't," Eva said, stepping back. He gave a wet, broken laugh. "You should have stayed dead," he whispered. The gunshot cracked through the trees, echoing across the ridge. Birds erupted from the branches above, the forest shuddering back to life. When Detective Hale arrived minutes later, her car's lights swept across the clearing. Daniel lay in the same dirt he'd once used to bury them, the pistol still warm beside his hand. Eva didn't cry. She just stood there, staring down at him, the man who had dug her grave, and in the end, buried himself instead. Weeks bled into one another like rain over ink. The world that had once ignored Eva's voice now couldn't stop speaking her name. Headlines told the story in pieces. Bellard Empire collapses under fraud investigation. Insurance murder, plot revealed. Local woman testifies in landmark case. Inside the courthouse, the air was cold and heavy with cameras and whispers. Eva sat on the witness stand, hands steady on the wood. Across the room, Bellard's expression was calm. Too calm, the kind that only money and arrogance could buy. His lawyers surrounded him like a wall, but even walls crack when the ground shifts. Detective Hale nodded from the front row, silent reassurance. When the prosecutor asked if Eva had anything to say before stepping down, she looked straight at the judge, her voice low but clear enough to carry. "Silence buries more than dirt ever could," she said. "It keeps rot alive. I stayed quiet once and it almost killed us. I won't again." The courtroom stayed silent for a heartbeat. Then pens began to move, cameras clicked, and the truth, at last, had weight.